There is a question very often people ask, how can they practice metta when they have a lot of anger, resentment? I think this afternoon's talk is on that particular topic, which is very important because when we practice metta, this negative mental states inevitably comes to our mind. Because we might have experienced some kind of quarrels, bitterness, some kind of problems, insults, and so forth and so on, so many things, because these are very normal, natural things in any life. So, metta is a very powerful remedy for that kind of mental state. And some people say when you are angry with someone, practice metta. My advice is that is not the time for you to practice metta, because that makes things even worse. You may ask, how can I practice metta towards such and so nasty person doing such and such things to me, to hurt me, insult me, belittle me, make me upset and take away my job and this and that. So many questions arise in the mind, and people resist practicing metta. Therefore, my suggestion is you first deal with anger before you start practicing metta. There are many things that I like to suggest to overcome anger. When I finish this, you may find many more reasons, many more ways of overcoming anger. Or you may find even more reason for you to get angry. So, keeping this in mind, I want to talk about it. Number one, practice patience. Friends, patience is the highest austere practice, highest tapas. Tapas means the practice we undertake as a mendicant. The mendicants, the best or highest practice is metta. Khanti paramang tapo titikha nibbānam paramanti vadanti buddha. The highest practice is patience. You can accomplish, having patience, a great deal you can accomplish. Patience simply means buying time to say right things to the right person at right moment, with right words, with right attitude. That is patience. Patience simply does not mean letting somebody sit on your head. So patience you have to practice with honor and dignity. That is not impossible. We all have enough willpower, strength and determination, education to practice patience this way. I want to begin this with, when you are weak, if you tolerate anything, that is not patience. When everything is going on very smoothly and you are patient, that is not a patient. There was a story called you read in Majjhima Nikaya, there is a discourse called Kakachupama Sutta. Kakachupama Sutta, I advise you to read that sutta, where Buddha has given a very, very difficult advice to follow. But if we follow that, we really practice patience. I like to give you the story very quick, the brief summary of the story. There was a woman called Vedehika. She had a servant girl, and she was doing her job pretty well. And Vedehika, the mistress, was very happy. So everybody talked about her patience, her compassion, her understanding. So one day, this servant girl thought, I don't know whether she is really patient or because I am doing my job properly. Let me test her. So one day she got up little late. That day Vedehika got upset and said, you girl, remember, you are paid, you are my servant, you are not supposed to get up so late, you are supposed to get up the first in the morning. And be careful. So this girl began to think, yeah, it seems to be working. Next day, she woke up even little later. That day she scolded her and threatened her, next time, if you get up too late, I break your head, beat you up. So third day, she got up even later. That day she took the mistress, Vedehika, took a broom and beat her with the broomstick until he began to bleed from her head. Then she, holding her head, ran out of the house and shouted, see what this very nice, compassionate lady has done to me. She broke my head. So her reputation went down the drain. So Buddha said to a monk called Bhaguna. Bhaguna was upset. Anytime he was associating with bhikkhunis unnecessarily. So everybody advised him, don't do that, that is not proper for you to do it. And he got upset. Anytime anybody advised her not to associate with bhikkhunis unnecessarily, he got upset. And so Buddha gave this advice, Bhaguna, so long as you get your robes, food, medicine, shelter, comfortably, and that time you practice patience, that is not patience. When something goes wrong, you get upset. And therefore patience is something that we have to cultivate when we get angry. When you are not angry, your patience is not a patience. One day, Venerable Sariputta's stories are many. I want to tell you only one of his beautiful stories. Venerable Sariputta was the Buddha's one of the two chief disciples. He was the brilliant monk, the wisest of all the wise monks of the Buddha. And he was so qualified in Dhamma that when the Buddha, after giving a sermon towards the end of his life, he was getting tired very quickly, and he stopped the sermon halfway and asked Venerable Sariputta to continue the sermon. Friends, who can do that? When I start this talk halfway, I say, ask one of you to come and continue my talk. I don't think you will do it because you are not prepared for it. But when Buddha asked Venerable Sariputta, he would do that. Exactly as the Buddha wanted to give the sermon. This venerable monk is known also for his patience. One day when he was going on his alms round, there were few Brahmins. Venerable Sariputta also came from Brahmin family, very aristocratic family, well educated. So when he was walking with his alms bowl to collect food, few Brahmins got together and said, this monk is famous for his patience. Another man said, let me try. So he went behind him and gave a big blow to Venerable Sariputta from behind. It was so strong that he nearly fell down. Venerable Sariputta did not even look back to find out who beat him. He continued to walk. This man felt so bad for his not reacting. He came in front of him, bowed down and paid respect and asked him to forgive him. Then Sariputta asked him, why do I forgive you? Because I beat you. Did you beat me? He continued to walk. Then this man felt even worse than before. Then he said, if you really forgive me, please come and have dana lunch in my house. Venerable Sariputta said, okay. He went and had lunch in his house. While he was having dana in this man's house, this news spread around. And other people got very, very upset that he beat Venerable Sariputta. And they all came with sticks and clubs and rocks and so forth and demanded, get him out of the house, get him out of the house, we want to beat him. Big commotion outside his house. They all wanted to beat this man. Now, Venerable Sariputta, while eating, he heard this commotion. Then he thought how to save this man who beat him. Soon after dana, Venerable Sariputta gave him his alms bowl to take it with him to the monastery. When the alms bowl was in his hand, these people would not beat him. So he gave his alms bowl and let this man follow him. And these people asked Venerable Sariputta, please take the alms bowl, we want to beat him. So he asked them, why? Because he is called, he beat you. Oh, did he beat you or me? He beat you. Then what? I forgave him, and that is not your concern. You go home. That was patience and compassion. When you are patient, it is easy for you to practice compassion, easy for you to practice metta. This is a very powerful example of Venerable Sariputta. He has done it several times. This is one incident. Others I don't want to mention because they also are very much like that, even better. So friends, when we want to practice metta, in the first place we must learn to get rid of our anger and practice patience. And you advise yourself. Next thing you should do when you are angry, you talk to yourself, advise yourself. This is a kind of talking meditation. You advise yourself, now see how I feel when I am angry. When I am angry, I don't feel comfortable. Buddha compared angry person to two things. One is boiling water pot, and the other is actually three similes. One is boiling water pot. When the pot is boiling, neither can you touch it, nor can you see your face in it. The second simile, when you are angry, you are like a sick person. When you are sick, you cannot appreciate anything. Any food, no matter how delicious it is not tasty, it's bland. Similarly, when we are angry, we don't see anything good in anybody, especially someone who made you angry. Even though the person has a lot of good things, we completely ignore them and use some unpleasant words. Third simile is even better. Buddha compared such a person to the stick taken from a funeral pyre, and that stick on one side is burnt and cannot touch that side because it can make your hand dirty, and the other side is smeared with excrement. The middle is burning, the other end is mixed with excrement. You cannot take it, hold it to use for firewood or for anything. You just don't want to touch it. When we are angry, our mind is very much like that. And we talk to ourselves. See how much pain we experience. I remember a good friend of mine practicing meditation. He's a meditation teacher. It is not here, it is in another country. I happened to be there, and we all had to go to a funeral, all several monks. When we returned, there was a temple assistant, an elderly gentleman. He wants to make a cup of tea for everybody. As soon as we got in, he said, Venerable sir, cup of tea. Then this meditation teacher, the head monk of the temple, got very angry, very upset, and shouted at him, as soon as we came in, we even did not change our robes, you are trying to give tea. And this man got so sad, he went to the kitchen, and there was a young woman preparing tea. And I overheard him say, look at this monk, he is a meditation teacher. I wanted to give him a cup of tea. He got very angry. All these meditation buggers are like that. He was crying, accusing all meditators. Gets angry for very tiny little thing. Where is our patience? Why we meditate? if we cannot control our temper. So we talk to ourselves. I am trying to do something wholesome and I want to put it into practice. So we have to use various ways of talking to ourselves to get rid of anger. Then we have to see 4 levels of anger. First is called anusaya level. Anusaya means underlying tendency. Anu, saya. Saya means sleeping. Anu is together with our subconscious mind. It is sleeping. That is called anusaya level. Then, as soon as something disagreeable happens, this underlying tendency becomes active. When we practice mindfulness, friends, we should be able to detect at the very beginning of this active state of anger. For this we have to have yoniso manasikara. Yoniso manasikara. Yoniso manasikara means paying or reflecting or paying attention to the very root, very beginning of any defilements. So we pay attention to that mental state, arising, becoming active. Third level is Vitikama. Vitikama means, Viti means street, Kama means moving, going. That means it began to operate, not only become active, it began to put into action, saying something unpleasant or thinking unpleasant thought or even doing something very unpleasant. That's called Vitikama, thinking, planning, preparing, getting ready to act. The last is Kammapata. Kammapata. Kamma is action, we put it into action. First, when it is underlying as underlying tendency, we don't notice very much. But when it becomes active, we become notice. And then when we plan or think, prepare for doing something, we become aware of it. And lastly, putting it into action to make it a kamma. These are the 4 levels. When anger is arising, we should be able to prepare not to act, not to do anything harmful, not to say anything harmful. We should be able to detect it and do not let it become active. Anger, of course, ordinarily people get angry, but anger will be totally subsided. First it subsides at a certain level, like when we practice concentration meditation, even mindfulness meditation, temporarily we can overcome anger. And when we attain jhanic state, also we can overcome anger even longer. And then finally, when we attain the state called anagami, non-returner, that is the state where anger we overcome, destroy, and never to arise. Even from the root, we remove the anger.